Laura Tarver from e-projectmanagers.com, here with another video tutorial. In today's session, we're going to take a look at the chair log. As you can see, I have an Excel file open in front of me, and the chair log is an Excel file. Chair stands for changes, action items, issues, and risks. You'll notice in the tabs at the bottom of this Excel file, there's a worksheet for changes, a worksheet for action items, a worksheet for issues, and a worksheet for risks. One of the first things you'll want to do when you open up the chair log template, which you'll find in the free project management templates repository at e-projectmanagers.com, one of the first things you want to do is save this file as your project name. What I recommend doing is going to the menu option, File, select Save As, and give it a name, which would be your project name. I already have an example here. It says project name. So put your project name, whatever your project name is called, and then chair log. And then I recommend putting the date. So today is January 21st, so I put in January 21st, 2008, and then save the file. Okay, now I already have a copy of this open, so I'm going to go to that file. Here it is. So it says my project name, chair log, and today's date. Of course, now remember, mine says project name, yours would say whatever your project is called. Okay. Anyway, back to the chair log. After you've saved the file, you'll want to go in and change the header and the footer. So if you go to your menu option, View, and select header and footer, you'll see that in this template there's some information already written here in the header. Just click on the custom header button, and in parentheses it says project name. You would write whatever your project name is. Just highlight that and type, whatever your project name is. Replacing whatever system, whatever name you have. Just type that in there. I say leave where it says change control log, because that tells you which worksheet you're on, and in the header you'll notice it says as of date and time. This will automatically be updated every time you print the file, so that's actually helpful information. You'll know what copy, if you have hard copies, is the most current. So after you make your changes here, you'll click on OK. If you want to update the footer, right now I have I have page 1 of, and then however many pages, but you can put whatever detail you need there. So again, I have page 1 of, let's see, 2 pages or whatever. That will automatically appear. It depends on how many pages are in your document. If you don't want that, you can change it to whatever you'd like for your page numbers. And this is again a part of the footer. So once you've changed the header and the footer in the page setup dialog box, then click on OK, and the header and footer will have been changed for this worksheet. So right now I'm in the changes worksheet. You'll want to do the same thing for each worksheet. You'll want to go to the action items worksheet, click on View, header and footer, custom header, and change the project name to be whatever your project name is. I've already put in here action items and the as of date and time, so you don't need to change those. So do that for the header and the footer. And again, you'll have to do that for every worksheet that's in here. Another important detail about the chair log is that as you are entering data, by default I've set the print area to be, in this case there are 16 rows, actually 15 because we're not counting the header. Every time that you need to add a row, you'll need to change the print area. So if we went to print preview, you can see all the rows that we have here. If I enter data and run out of rows and need to add another row, what I like to do is simply select the format, click on the format painter, go down to the next set of rows. I have 2 rows selected, so this will format rows 17 and 18 for me here. I take the format painter and I click on that row, and as you can see, it's now given me a similar format to what I have above here. But as you can see by this dotted line in Excel, that means my print area is still the first 15 rows. I'll need to extend my print area. So I'm going to highlight everything in here, go to File, select Print Area, and then select Set Print Area. And now my print area is 18 rows. So remember, every time you add a new row in the chair log, you'll need to readjust your print area. Right now we're looking at the change log, And the change log is actually where you're going to track changes. Now, typically when someone has a change on most projects, part of your communication process will be to have team members submit a change request form. And this is an example that I have here in Word of a change request form. This is also a template that's available in the repository. Just look for change request form, RTF. You can customize this with your company logo, your project name. And this change request form has a standard things that you would put on a change request form, meaning if someone has a change that's not already in your project schedule or in your plan or out of scope of what was originally planned, they would need to fill out this change request form. When this form is filled out, then you would also log it in the change log. So your first change would be change number 1, the date that it's submitted in here, whatever the date is, the name of the person who submits it, a description of the change, which, by the way, you would get from here in the change request form. You'd have your description. The status, if it's open, if it's being reviewed, you know, whatever status you'd like to use to track the status of changes. When you'd like to, the forecast close date is when you would like to have this change either accepted or denied. So that would be a date that you would put in there. And when it is actually closed, you would put the actual close date. Typically what I do when I'm tracking anything in the chair log is as I review it weekly, I'll put a comment in which will have the day's date as a prefix. So for example, today's January 21st, so I would have something like, you know, January 21st, 2008, and I hit Control B to make that bold, and then at the very end I hit Control B to turn it bold off, and then I'll make a comment like, you know, Mr. Whoever is reviewing the change request. Okay, so you can add comments in here. And one of the things you'll want to do is if you right click in the cell for the comments and then select Format Cell from the pop-up menu that appears, you can go to Alignment and select Wrap Text and then click on OK. And then another thing you want to do is make sure everything is left justified. So, oh, I see. I have this underscore in here, so that's why that appears over a little bit to the right. But anyway, you'll want to adjust this, and every time you make comments, you'll just come in here, hit F2, hit Alt-Enter, which brings you down to a new row, and the next time you add a comment, you can hit Control B and then put the next week's date in there. So let's pretend this is next week, and I'll just put, I'm making up a date here. And then I hit Control B to turn bold off, and then I'll put, you know, whatever is happening comment, you know, for this. Now this standard of commenting is something you're going to use throughout all of these chair logs. In other words, a comment column can be used to put in the date, and you can make that bold. That's one of the nice features about Excel. You literally just highlight something, hit the bold key, and it'll be bold, or you can highlight it and hit bold and turn bold off. So for every comment, you can know, you can keep a time log for them. Okay, so this is something you can use on each worksheet. The action item log, the way I have this set up right now is you can see by default there's filtering on here. You can see these little triangles. Sometimes what happens is on a project there'll be so many action items that you'll want to filter out what is open and what is closed. So let's say, for example, we have an action item. I'm going to put in one. I'm just going to make up I'm going to put in today's date, 2008, submitted by Dora, priority high. Description, you know, I'm just going to type in garbage here for now, but I think you'll get the idea. Owner, who this action item is assigned to. Let's just say it's assigned to Bob. And when we expect Bob to have this action item complete, let's say we want him to have it done by, today's Monday the 21st, so let's say Wednesday the 23rd. So January 23rd, whoops, 23rd, 2008. And again, you can put in whatever comments here, and the status in this case would be open. So I typed open. Now, eventually, when you have multiple action items in your action item log, and let's say one of them is closed, rather than keeping all the closed items in here, you can filter out what is closed. Typically what I do is when something is closed, I'll put in what the close date is, and of course we have comments like I just showed you how to do in the previous change log. But another thing I'll do, which I think makes it visually easier for people to follow, is I'll literally highlight the row and make the background a light gray. Then I go to the filter drop-down and I select custom. So under status I select custom, and I'll say I want to see everything that does not equal closed. Okay, and because this is set, you see the arrow here is now blue, and this is filtering out anything that's not open. So that's why the filtering is on. Once you begin to add a lot of action items in your action item log, or issues, or even risks and changes, for those things that are closed, it's just easier to filter them out. How you turn filtering on and off is you go to Data, and under Data in Excel you select Filter, and I have Auto Filter on. You just check that. I just checked it and it went off because I already had it on. So you go to Filter, check Auto Filter. Oops, you have to select your row. Data, Filter, Auto Filter, and it turns the filter feature on. The issues log, very similar. If you have an issue, you prioritize it. You might want to, again, you have a status when an issue is open, or you might want to sort them by priority. There are different ways to handle that, but the issue log is where you're tracking your issues. And the risk log here is where you're tracking risk. In the risk management template, I'm going to go into more detail about how to work with this. But basically with the risk log, after you've performed your risk analysis will provide you with output that you fill this in with. Just as we had a change request form for filling out the change log, there's actually a whole risk analysis process that we'll get into later. And the output from that would be logged in here. You would have your risk number, when it's logged, who owns the risk, a description of the risk, what triggers the risk, the expected date that risk would be triggered, probability. The probability is whether or not it's a long shot, whether it's probable or not, whether it's probable but not likely, whether it's 50-50 chance of happening, whether it's pretty likely, a good chance that it will occur, or if it's a sure thing. Probability has a scale. And when you roll over this title in the chair log, a little window will pop up that shows you the comment that I've already put in there for probability. So this detail again is something that you would is an output from the risk analysis. The same for impact. Impact shows how this risk will impact your project. And there's a scale here from 1 to 5. 1 means you can fix it on the fly. 2 means you can fix it with unscheduled effort but won't affect the project schedule. Let me just scoot over here a little bit. 3, you're going to stop and take a look and it could impact the project schedule, but you think you have enough time to catch up. Ranking of 4 is a significant amount of additional resources and or time would be needed, and milestone dates may be affected, but this doesn't impact the critical path, meaning the expected project end date. And 5 is affects the critical path, project end date changes. So you would see that and you would know how important this particular risk is based on the impact level. The column J here, the risk level, is automatically calculated. You can change these numbers. You can see when you click on the yellow 0, it says sum of G2 times I2. It's taking G2 and multiplying it by I2. You'll see that number here. And that'll give you an assessment visually of the number of significant risks that you have on the project. In this log, you'll also include your mitigation strategy. And your mitigation strategy, of course, in many cases is also something that you'll put in your project schedule because there's some specific activity that you would be engaged in to prevent this risk from occurring. And then you have your status. So this is the risk log. And again, we'll go more into detail about this log when we go through the risk analysis process. There's a template for that as well. So anyway, the chair log. Again, chair stands for changes, action items, issues, and risks. I recommend you rename the template by the project name. Keep chair log in there. I typically weekly will update the name of the file with a new date and save this whole file in some project repository. And this whole log, the chair log, is something that you'll bring to status meetings that you have. Depending on if who you're working with. One of the things I'll do is I'll have in my chair log, I sometimes add a column for the stakeholders. Like I'll make a category for whether it's a business change or a technical change or a business issue or a technical issue, and then I'll filter it for business issues or technical issues so that when I'm in a status meeting with business people, they'll only see the business issues or risk or action items. And the same for technical, I'll filter it so they only see those. But you can have one log that you use for everything on your project. I find this very easy to use. I know there are a lot of products out there that also give you the ability to track issues and action items. You might find a way to be able to feed information from that into this, so you can just bring this one file or email this one file to your project stakeholders when you send out your status report each month. But that's pretty much it in terms of an introduction to how to work with the chair log. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to contact me. Thank you for your time. Have an excellent day.